Welcome. Tonight, let us journey back in time, not to the courts of kings, nor to the bloodied fields of battle, but to the soot-covered heart of the 19th century. A century of change, of machines, of smoke and movement, and of lives lived in the quiet shadows of progress. You are not a noble, nor a soldier, nor a name remembered in books. Tonight, you are something else. You are one among thousands, a worker, a soul among steel and steam. This is not the glamorous history that shouts from pages. This is the history that hummed, that clanked, that breathed slowly in the dark. So close your eyes, let the world fade just a little, and imagine yourself walking through the early morning mist of a British factory town. Your boots damp, the cobblestones slick, the whistle calling in the distance. Welcome to your shift. Welcome to the industrial age. Imagine yourself as a young worker in the year 1834. Perhaps you are 14, or maybe even younger. You are small, and that makes you useful. Your day begins before the sun has properly risen. The air is damn thick with a mixture of smoke and mist, and your breath clouds before you. There is no alarm clock, no warm breakfast waiting. Only the distant, shrill steam whistle that signals the start of the workday. The factory stands ahead of you, an imposing brick building, its narrow windows glowing faintly from inside, like tired eyes that never truly sleep. As you step in, the heavy wooden doors groan closed behind you. The change is immediate. Inside, the air is warmer, thicker, vibrating with the low, constant rhythm of machines. You are surrounded by the scent of oil, damp cotton, rusted metal, and the sweat of dozens of bodies moving in rhythm. The machines are hungry. Their metal limbs churn, slap, spin, and bite. You must move carefully. A wrong step, a moment of distraction, and the machines may punish you. Not out of malice, of course, only indifference. The overseer watches, stick in hand. He is not cruel. Not exactly. He is tired too. His job is to keep the rhythm. Yours is not to fall behind. You stand at your station, day after day, repeating the same motion, loading the bobbin, guiding the threads, clearing out waste, winding yarn over and over. The noise is so constant that after a time, your thoughts must move around it, like a stream flowing past a rock. There are no earplugs, no breaks for silence, only lunch. A quiet half-hour, sometimes, if the manager allows. You eat quickly, bread, maybe, cheese, if you're lucky, cold tea from a tin. Your hands are always dirty, always scratched, always aching. The factory floor doesn't care if you're sick. It doesn't care if you had a nightmare the night before, or if you're falling asleep on your feet. If you can stand, you can work. There is a rhythm to the day, though, a kind of steady, unspoken order. The machines demand it. The floor has its own choreography, workers weaving between each other, stepping over fallen threads, clearing scraps, all without missing a beat. Even the children know the dance. Sometimes the days are so long, they blur. 14 hours, 6 days a week. Sundays are for church or sleep, often both. In the winter, you might arrive and leave in darkness. The gas lamps flicker overhead, casting long, moving shadows on the walls. The machines never truly rest. Even when one is being cleaned or repaired, another takes its place in the rhythm. And yet, despite the noise, the danger, the repetition, there is a kind of strange companionship. You are not alone. All around you are others, young and old, strong and frail, bound together by labor, by the warmth of shared struggle. There are jokes passed quietly between workers, a song hummed beneath breath, almost lost in the hum of gears, a shared biscuit, a kind glance. These small things, they matter. In time, you become attuned to the machine's moods. You can hear when it whines just slightly wrong. You can feel when the cotton fibers shift under your fingers. You are not just a laborer. You are part of this place, an extension of the process, a cog in a greater wheel. It is not glorious, it is not gentle, but it is life. And every day you return to it, because it is what there is, because it is what feeds your family, because there is no other path, not really. And so the days roll on. The rhythm continues. The factory breathes, and so do you.
A quiet recounting of ambition, danger, and the forgotten lives behind a great industrial tragedy. Let us shift now from the damp alleys of England to the bustling streets of early 20th century New York City, where the rhythms of factory life beat just as loudly, but in a different key. Imagine yourself walking through Manhattan's Lower East Side in 1911. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and bagels. Horse-drawn carts rattle over cobblestone streets, and above them rise the dark shapes of tenement buildings, their windows cracked open to the clatter below. At the heart of this working world stood the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, located on the upper floors of the Ash Building near Washington Square. Here, hundreds of young immigrant women, mostly Jewish and Italian, worked long hours, sewing delicate blouses called sh. These garments were the height of fashion for modern women at the time: clean lines, tight collars, and a suggestion of independence. The factory was considered modern for its day. It had electric sewing machines, rows of high windows, and long work tables where the young women, some just 13 or 14 years old, would sit, their fingers flying over the fabric from morning to night. But it was not a place of comfort. The owners, Isaac Harris and Max Planck were driven men. They had built their business from nothing, and they guarded their profits carefully. The doors to the factory floors were often locked during working hours, not for safety, but to prevent theft and keep out union organizers. There were no fire drills, no sprinkler system, only buckets of water and hope. On March 25, 1911, it was a Saturday. The workday was nearly done. It began as a small flicker, possibly a discarded cigarette dropped into a pile of fabric scraps. Within minutes, fire surged through the 8th, 9th, and 10th floors, fueled by dry cloth, wooden tables, and oil-soaked machinery. Panic took hold. Imagine you are there. You smell the smoke before you see it. You hear the sudden, unnatural silence as machines stop, then shouts, then screams. Some workers ran for the elevators, others to the stairs, but the doors were locked. The elevator operators made trip after trip, rescuing as many as they couldn't till the heat warped the cables and the lifts could no longer move. Some girls tried the fire escape. It twisted and groaned, then tore from the building and collapsed. And some too many stepped into the open windows and looked down at the crowd that had gathered in horror below. One by one, they jumped. Some held hands, some leaped alone. In less than 20 minutes, 146 workers had lost their lives. The youngest was just 14. The city grieved, but quietly. These were not wealthy women. They were not known. They were simply workers. The factory owners, Harris and Blanc, were put on trial, but acquitted. Civil penalties followed, but no prison. And yet, something had changed. The fire stirred something in the public's mind. It gave shape to the dangers so long ignored. It was no longer just about profit. It was about human cost. In the months and years that followed, new fire safety laws were passed. Unions gained strength. And for a moment, even the quietest voices, the immigrant girl, the overworked seamstress, the nameless hand behind the seams, were heard. But even now, their names are rarely remembered. Only the silence they left behind. A quiet exploration of rusted ruins, lost machines, and the slow decay of progress. We move now into silence, into places once full of noise and purpose, now still. The abandoned factories of the industrial age. Imagine yourself walking down a cracked road somewhere in the American Midwest, or northern England, or a riverside town in East Germany. The air is heavy with the smell of moss, iron, and time. Ahead of you stands a ruin, a place that once roared with labor and light. The walls are brick, soot-stained, and broken in places. Ivy has found its way in. Trees grow from floors where men once worked, and overhead the ceiling sags like tired shoulders. Inside, the air is cooler, quiet. There is a strange reverence to it, like stepping into an ancient temple. Sunlight filters through broken windows, catching on specks of dust that float gently through the still air. You see machines, enormous things, wheels, gears, pistons, rusted but still standing. Some seem almost asleep, as if waiting for the workers to return. Their names are still stenciled on steel plates: Chicago Iron Co., Sheffield Works, Glashütte Mechanic. In one corner, a stack of ledgers, softened by mold, still sits beside a rusted punch clock. You can almost hear the echo of footsteps, the soft ding of metal, the low hum of industry. These places are remnants, fossils of labor. Their walls have soaked up centuries of noise, sweat, and memory. And though the men and women who labored here are gone, Their fingerprints remains, sometimes literally, pressed into the grime of old lockers or etched into wooden benches with penknives and chalk. Archaeologists today study these ruins as carefully as ancient ruins in Rome or Egypt. They sift through soot for fragments of fabric, old tobacco tins, discarded tools. From these, a story is pieced together, not of kings and generals, but of workers and lives left unrecorded. Sometimes they find curious things, like a single child's shoe tucked behind a beam, a handwritten note folded into a rusted locker, a photograph, browned with age, of a girl smiling at the factory gates. Each artifact is a whisper, a reminder that these were not just buildings, they were communities, places where people spent their lives, earned their bread, made jokes, suffered boredom, fell in love, injured themselves, aged. There are entire towns where these ruins now define the landscape, ghosts of industry that no longer serve a purpose but remain, like quiet monuments to what was once considered unstoppable progress. Some factories are repurposed, turned into lofts, galleries, or museums. Others are demolished, but many simply remain, slowly claimed by nature, by time. And there is a strange comfort in that, a stillness, a kind of peace. The machines have stopped. The workers simply breathe. A contrasting view into comfort, control, and the quiet architecture of privilege. Now, leave behind the soot-blackened factory floors and follow the staircase upward. Not the narrow iron stairs the workers used, but the wide, carpeted ones, polished each morning by a silent maid. At the top of the stairs, another world opens. The air is warmer here, cleaner. The windows are taller, the ceilings higher, the smells of beeswax, tobacco, and fresh paper. This is the office of the factory owner. If you were a successful industrialist in the late 19th or early 20th century, your world was very different from those who labored beneath you. You might rise early, yes, but not to punch a clock. You'd sit down to a hot breakfast prepared by servants and review accounts brought by your bookkeeper in neat ink. You might walk the floor, occasionally nodding to the foreman, adjusting your cuffs, offering a word of encouragement or quiet rebuke, but you did not sweat. Your shoes never touched the factory dust. Your world was one of ledgers and influence, of quiet drawing rooms where deals were made over tea, of dinners with bankers, of quiet walks through garden estates while your workers lined up for 12-hour shifts in cold sheds, and at home there was leisure. Imagine yourself in the drawing room of a factory owner's home. Heavy drapes keep the light subdued. A piano waits quietly in the corner. There are books, many, often unread, lining tall shelves, and a thick carpet that muffles every step. Your wife, likely dressed in silk or lace, hosts social calls, her days filled with correspondence and planning charitable teas. Your children study Latin and violin with tutors. You invest in railways or shipping companies. You attend art galleries. You may never hear the names of the girls sewing your garments or the boys shoveling coal beneath your machines. Yet there is an odd isolation here. Many factory owners lived in comfort, but also in distance. A detachment, physical and emotional, from the world their wealth came from. They did not know the specific burns their employees suffered. They did not smell the dye vats. They did not sit in the cold before sunrise to await the factory whistle. Still, some owners believed in responsibility. A few built housing for their workers, model villages with gardens, like the Cadburys in Bourneville or the levers in port sunlight. Others funded hospitals, schools, and libraries. But even these gestures, however generous, reinforced the gulf. It was charity, not solidarity. And as the decades passed, industrialists became symbols of both progress and inequality. Their names were etched on cornerstones, university wings, and railway stations, while their workers' names slowly faded from memory. But their worlds upstairs and down were forever linked, because for every soot-covered machine, there was an ivory-handled cane. For every aching hand, a silk-gloved one. And for every young woman crushed beneath the weight of labor, there was a gentleman who read about it dispassionately over his morning paper. 2 lives, 1 factory. We have now explored the many sides of this world, and so, gently, we come to rest. And now, as we leave behind the smoke-choked alleys, the glowing coals, and the soft rustle of ledger pages, we reflect on the rhythms of a world that once beat with steam and sweat. The 19th century factory was more than just a place of work. It was an ecosystem of lives interwoven in toil and silence, ambition and exhaustion. It was a place where mornings began before the sun rose, and where the hum of machines replaced birdsong. Where children learned the clatter of looms before they learned their letters, and where the sky, if you could see it at all, was often gray with ash. We've walked in the worn shoes of a factory worker. We've stood in the quiet horror of a fire that claimed lives too young. We've explored the hollow shells of forgotten industries, and we've peeked behind velvet curtains at the well-fed calm of those who never turned a gear. And now, perhaps, as you lie in your bed, listening in the hush between words, you feel that gentle distance, that strange, comforting truth that all of this is past. The smoke has cleared. The whistle has blown its last. The factories, if they stand at all, do so in silence. And while the world continues to hum in different ways today, this chapter of human striving and struggle rests now, like you soon will. So, breathe slowly, let the echoes fade, and allow your mind to drift softly, steadily, like dust in a shaft of afternoon light, settling across the wooden beams of a factory long forgotten. Sleep well. You are not in the 19th century anymore. You are home.